Hey folks, it's Nate, and it's time I got back to the drawing board, and tonight we're back with Chapter 4 of our book study into Naoki Urosawa's Monster, and we're looking at Chapter 4. And this is an important chapter because this is when we start to develop threads beyond Tenma's personal life in his career. Because that's really not what this story is about. It's important to set up Tenma's fall. It's important that he, had this crisis of conscience and that he operated on Johann according to medical ethics. And it's important that it cost him a lot because that's the setup. But there are other people that we have to start addressing, and two of them are Anna and Johann Liebner, the twins, children of the murdered East German defectors, whose, the murder is really the inciting incident for everything else that happens here. And here we see Anna being interrogated by the Dusseldorf police. Of course, this is a big deal. These are defectors who were murdered in Western Germany. They're from Eastern Germany. There's a lot of concern about spies from the Soviet bloc. There's a possibility that the Western Germany national police will come into this. Possibly Interpol will come into this. This is an international incident after all. In many ways, Eastern Germany still claiming the Liebners in many ways. So this is a big deal. Unfortunately, Anna seems to have short-term memory loss. She seems to have blocked her memories. She's not responding to much of any stimulus, and she won't answer any of the questions the detective is asking her, which is causing a lot of problems. The detective proposes that they might reunite her with her brother to try and jog some memories, bring back some memories, and also to reassure her somewhat in that her brother is still alive. But ultimately, Tenma, who is still in charge of Johann's case, is highly against that. He wants to make sure Johann is stable before he's stressed in any way. And, fair enough. Medicine and the law sometimes have conflicting interests in these kinds of cases. This is not going to become a moral issue, and it's not going to become a moral issue because, frankly, Tenma doesn't have the standing anymore to do anything about it. So as Tenma is being somewhat comforted by Dr. Beckner, who is his colleague that botched the operation that led to Tenma's crisis of faith in the first chapter, we see the director talking with some of his cronies and deciding that they're just going to take Tenma off of this case because they want to make a PR play. The mayor has died, but this kid's still alive. So you might as well get some pictures with him and his sister, put them in the media. And so transfer is taken, authority in here is taken away from Dr. Tenma, and it's given to a crony that's a little easier for the director to manipulate. Importantly, we see the director and his pals take a little candy from Johann, kind of a scumbag move. Not that we should be surprised by that at this point. These people are kind of scumbags. But yeah, there's a lot of these well-wishing gifts that the public has been sending. This is part of why the director kind of wants to get Johann out in front of the public. There's clearly a lot of sympathy for these kids. Anyways, on the very next page, not wasting any time, as we can see, we see Tenma coming out of a consultation, and he hears screaming, and he discovers that Anna has in fact been brought back together with her brother, and that results in her yelling and fainting dead away, while where is it? We see Johann's reaction was to begin crying and reaching out for her. This is interesting, and it shocks Tenma, as you can see on this page here. This was not what he had really been expecting. We don't know what he did expect. He was preventing this just because he wanted to make sure Johann was stable before he did it. Although this is probably an indication that that was the right call to make, all things considered. That's pretty much what happens in this chapter. It raises some interesting questions, and it shows us what the current relationship between the twins is. And by the end of it, we don't have a whole lot more information about what's going on, but we do have some interesting characters set up. So it's time to leave on a cliffhanger, because the director's decision did not come without consequences. What we find at the end is that Dr. Boyer is dead. And as a matter of fact, the director is dead. And that's very interesting because these are people who have been opposing Dr. Tenma and talking bad about him. They're people that Dr. Tenma wants dead. They're people who have had direct hands in undermining his career for the first few chapters here. And this probably leave Tenma in a very uncomfortable situation. But that's a mystery for a later time. And this is, I think, where we begin to really see Urosawa's ability to build tension, to raise interesting things that seem meaningless, that will come in again later. One excellent example of this is the director and the two doctors eating candy in this chapter, which seems like a weird thing to waste a really three whole panels if you consider the setup and the dialogue on. But as it will turn out in the next chapter, spoilers alert, this was in fact how they were murdered. They were poisoned. And I think this kind of attention to detail, forethought, and planning on Urosawa's part is a great part of what builds the tension in his stories. There's another great example here. In fact, on this page right here, where we see Tenma consulting with this patient. And this is a thing that Urosawa makes masterful use of, and that's the page turn. He leaves a page on something to draw your attention to the next page. So we see the scream here, but we don't understand the source of the scream or why anyone is screaming until the next page. This is not probably the best example of that. There's some really great examples in the series 20th Century Boys, which, I don't know, maybe we'll do that sometime as well. But all in all, masterful use of suspense building in this chapter on Urosawa's part. And just a lot of technical stuff, not as much looking into the characters here, which makes sense because sooner or later you need to start having these kinds of really shocking events. And you need to have them because this is not really a character study, although we do study a number of very interesting characters in here. Ultimately, this is not a story about characters. It's a story about a monster. I'll see you in chapter 5.